The transport shuttle landed with a soft thud on Luna Station's metal floor. Maria Santos stepped out slowly, her black boots making sharp sounds that echoed through the empty docking bay. She looked different now. Her brown hair was shorter than before, and her dark eyes moved around the room like she was looking for danger that might not be there. 3 years. 3 long years fighting the HFY in the far reaches of space. Most of her friends had come home months ago when the war ended. But Maria had stayed behind. She had asked to keep working in the outer systems, doing jobs that other soldiers did not want to do. Captain Jake Morrison waited by the big metal door. He had been Maria's boss before she left for the war. Now he stood watching her walk toward him, and something felt wrong. Maria moved too smoothly, like a cat hunting mice. Her shoulders were straight, but her hands hung loose at her sides, ready to grab a weapon that was not there. "Welcome home, Santos," Jake said, holding out his hand to shake hers. When Maria took his hand, Jake felt rough skin where it had been soft before. Her grip was much stronger than he remembered. She squeezed his hand just a little too hard, just a little too long. "Thank you, sir," Maria said. Her voice sounded the same, but there was something cold in it now. It feels strange to be back. Jake led her through the station's white hallways. Other soldiers and workers moved out of their way without being asked. Something about Maria made people want to step aside. She walked like she owned the place, but also like she was ready to fight anyone who got in her way. "How was the trip back?" Jake asked, trying to make normal conversation. "Quiet," Maria said. "I spent most of it reading reports about what happened. Here, while I was gone, things have been peaceful. The HFY signed the peace treaty 6 months ago. No more fighting." Maria stopped walking. She turned to look at Jake with those dark eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Peace," she said slowly, like the word tasted bad in her mouth. "Yes, I heard about that." They walked in silence after that. Jake wanted to ask her what she had been doing all those extra months in space. He wanted to know why she looked so different, why she moved like a predator instead of a soldier. But something told him he did not really want to know the answers. Admiral Lisa Crawford was waiting in her office when they arrived. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had always liked Maria, had always thought she would be a great officer someday. But when Maria walked into her office, Lisa felt a chill run down her back. "Sit down, Maria," Lisa said, pointing to a chair. "We need to talk about your time in the outer systems." Maria sat down, but she did not relax. She kept her back straight and her eyes moving around the room. She looked at the windows, the doors, and the places where someone might hide if they wanted to attack. "Your reports were very detailed," Lisa continued. "But I need you to tell me in your own words what you learned about the HFY." Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak, and the words that came out made both Jake and Lisa feel sick. "The HFY are not just another enemy," Maria said. "They are survivors. They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every time they beat another species, they learn everything about them. They take their weapons, their fighting methods, their ways of thinking. They become stronger with each victory. That matches what our scientists found," Lisa said. "But how did you learn so much about them?" Maria smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a shark might make before it bit someone. "I lived with them," she said simply. "I learned their language. I ate their food. I fought beside them and against them. I learned to think like them." Jake felt his mouth go dry. "You lived with the enemy?" "I did what I had to do to understand them," Maria said. "And what I learned is that we are not ready for what is coming next." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "The HFY told me about others. Species that make them look weak. Things that live in the dark between stars. They are coming, Admiral. And when they get here, we will need to be ready to do things that we have never done before." Maria stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars, with eyes that had seen too much. "I volunteered to stay behind because I knew I was changing," she said without turning around. "I knew that fighting monsters was making me into something different, something that might scare the people I was trying to protect." Lisa and Jake looked at each other. They both understood now why Maria seemed so different, so dangerous. "What kind of things did you have to do out there?" Lisa asked quietly. Maria turned around. Her face was calm, but her eyes were like ice. "I learned to hunt like they hunt. I learned to interrogate prisoners the way they do. I learned to use weapons that most humans would call evil. I learned to think like a predator instead of a protector." She walked back to her chair but did not sit down. "The thing about fighting monsters," Maria said, "is that you have to become something of a monster yourself to win. The question is whether you can control the monster inside you, or whether it controls you." Jake felt a shiver run through him. The Maria he had known before the war would never have talked like this. That Maria had been kind and gentle, someone who worried about hurting people even when they deserved it. "Are you still you, Maria?" he asked. Maria looked at him for a long time before answering. "I am what I needed to become to keep humanity alive," she said. "Whether that is still me or not, I cannot say." Lisa stood up and walked around her desk. She put her hand on Maria's shoulder, and she could feel the hard muscle there, the tension of someone always ready to fight. "What do you want to do now?" Lisa asked. "I want to prepare," Maria said. "I want to get ready for the war that is coming." "Because it is coming, Admiral. And when it does, you are going to need soldiers who are willing to do whatever it takes to win." Outside the window, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere out there in the darkness, something was waiting. Something that would test humanity in ways they had never been tested before. And Maria Santos, who had returned from battle with darker skills, would be ready for it. 3 months passed after Maria returned to Luna Station. She spent most of her time reading reports and training with weapons that made other soldiers nervous. She practiced fighting moves that looked more like dancing, but deadly dancing that could kill a person in seconds. Then the alarm started. Screaming, Admiral Lisa Crawford ran into the command center where dozens of officers stared at screens showing terrible news. Captain Jake Morrison was already there, his face white with shock. "What is happening?" Lisa demanded. "New Harmony Colony," Jake said, his voice shaking. 2 million people. They are all gone." On the main screen, satellite images showed what had been a beautiful planet with green fields and blue oceans. Now it was a ball of fire and ash. The cities were gone. The forests were gone. Everything was gone. "Who did this?" Lisa asked. "We do not know yet," an officer said. "But we are getting reports of unknown ships in that system. Big ships, bigger than anything we have ever seen." Lisa felt her heart sink. Maria had warned them that something was coming. Something worse than the Kethver. Now it was here. "Get me everything we have on those ships," Lisa ordered. "I want to know who they are and what they want." The answer came 6 hours later. The aliens called themselves the Jektari Empire. They sent a message to Earth that was short and simple. "Your species will surrender or die. You have 1 year to decide." The message was delivered by dropping the burned remains of New Harmony Colony's government building onto Luna stations. Docking Bay. Inside the twisted metal, they found recordings of the colony's last moments. The screams would haunt everyone who heard them. Lisa called an emergency meeting of Earth's military leaders. Generals and admirals filled the room, all of them looking scared and angry. "What do we know about these Jektari?" General Bob Hayes asked. "Not much," Lisa admitted. "Our scientists are studying the wreckage, but these aliens use technology we do not understand. Their ships move like living things. Their weapons cut through our best shields like they are made of paper." "How many ships do they have?" asked Admiral Nick Cooper. We think at least 1,000, maybe more. Each one is bigger than our largest battleship. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Humanity was facing an enemy that could destroy them completely. We need to run simulations, General Hayes said. Find out how to fight them. Lisa nodded, but she already knew what the simulations would show. She had seen the power of the Jektari weapons. She had read the reports of how fast their ships moved. Humanity did not stand a chance in a normal fight. The simulations ran for 2 weeks. Every single one showed the same result: total human defeat. The Jektari would destroy Earth's fleets, then burn every human world until nothing was left. Lisa sat in her office, staring at the reports. Outside her window, she could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. Soon, it might be nothing but ash and fire like New Harmony Colony. A knock on her door interrupted her dark thoughts. "Come in," she said. Maria Santos walked into the office. She looked exactly the same as she had 3 months ago, calm, dangerous, and ready for anything. "You sent for me, Admiral?" Maria asked. "Yes," Lisa said. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Maria sat down and waited. "Can we beat them?" Lisa asked. "Can humanity win this war?" Maria was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke in a voice that was soft but full of certainty. "Not the way we are now," she said. "Not if we fight them like we fought the Kethver or any other enemy. The Jektari are too strong, too smart, too experienced." Lisa felt her heart break a little. "Then we are going to die." "Maybe," Maria said. "Unless we are willing to become something we have never been before." "What do you mean?" Maria stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at Earth for a long moment before speaking. "I told you that fighting monsters changes you. The Jektari are the biggest monsters in the galaxy. To beat them, we will have to become monsters too." Lisa understood what Maria was suggesting, and it terrified her. "You want to use the things you learned from the Kethver," Lisa said. "Not just from the Kethver," Maria replied. "From everyone I have fought. Every alien species has ways of fighting that humans think are wrong or evil. But wrong and evil are just words. What matters is winning." Lisa walked over to stand beside Maria at the window. "What would you need?" she asked quietly. "A ship," Maria said. "Something experimental. Something built with all the alien technology we have captured over the years. And I want to choose my own crew." "What kind of crew?" Maria smiled that cold smile again. "Soldiers who understand that sometimes you have to go into the darkness to protect the light. People who have been changed by war, like I have been changed. People who are willing to do whatever it takes to keep humanity alive." Lisa knew she was about to make a decision that would change everything. A decision that might save humanity. Or damn it, forever. "You would be operating outside normal military rules," she said. "No oversight, no regulations. Complete freedom to fight this war however you think is best." "Yes," Maria said simply. "And if you win, if you somehow beat the Jektari, what then? What happens to you and your crew? Can you come back from that kind of darkness?" Maria turned to look at Lisa with those ice-cold eyes. "I do not know," she said honestly. "But I would rather be a monster who protects humanity than a hero who watches it die." Lisa made her decision. "You will have your ship," she said. "The USS Nightfall. It was designed using Kethver technology, Vrex weapons, and Silthery biosystems. Most of our officers refuse to even go near it." "Perfect," Maria said. "And your crew?" "I already have people in mind. Danny Rodriguez survived the siege of Kepler, stationed by learning to think like the aliens who hunted him. Amy Chun spent 2 years undercover with human extremist groups. Pete Johnson was court-martialed for experimenting with captured alien technology. They are all damaged, but they are all survivors." Lisa nodded slowly. She was about to unleash something terrible into the galaxy. But maybe terrible was what humanity needed to survive. "When do you leave?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Maria said. "The Zhiktari think they have a year to prepare for our surrender. Let us show them what happens when humans decide to fight back." As Maria left the office, Lisa wondered if she had just saved humanity or doomed it. But one thing was certain. The war against the Zhiktari would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The USS Nightfall was not like other human ships. It was black as space itself, with smooth curves that hurt to look at for too long. When Maria first saw it in the hidden shipyard, she felt something cold move through her chest. The ship felt alive, like it was watching her with invisible eyes. Danny Rodriguez stood beside her on the dock. He was a short man with scars on his face and hands that never stopped shaking. 2 years ago, alien hunters had trapped his unit inside Kepler Station. Danny was the only one who survived, and he survived by learning to think like the things that hunted him. "That ship looks wrong," Danny said quietly. "Good," Maria replied. "Wrong is what we need." Amy Chun joined them a few minutes later. She was pale and thin, with eyes that seemed to see things other people missed. For 2 years, she had lived among humans who hated aliens so much they wanted to kill anyone who had ever worked with them. Amy had learned to hate like they hated, to think like they thought. It had nearly broken her mind. "The crew quarters are ready," Amy reported. "But some of the systems are still giving me trouble. The computer speaks in 3 different alien languages, and I think it might be reading my thoughts." Pete Johnson came walking up the dock, oil stains on his uniform, and strange metal pieces sticking out of his arms. He had been a normal engineer once, but after the court-martial, he had started putting alien technology inside his own body. Now half of him was human and half was machine. "The engines are running perfectly," Pete said. His voice had a strange echo to it, like he was speaking through a computer. "But I had to connect myself directly to the ship's systems to make them work. I can feel every part of the ship now, like it is part of my body." Maria looked at her crew. They were all damaged. They were all dangerous. They were exactly what she needed. "We launch in 1 hour," she said. "Our first target is a Zhiktari supply convoy in the Outer Rim. Intelligence says they are carrying weapons and food to their forward bases." "How do we fight them?" Danny asked. Maria smiled that cold smile that never reached her eyes. "We fight them like Kepler pack hunters. We use Vrex fear tactics. We hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they can fight back." The war began. That night, the Zhiktari convoy was moving through empty space when the Nightfall appeared behind them like a ghost. The alien ships were huge and powerful, but they were not expecting an attack from something so small and fast. Maria used hunting techniques she had learned from the Kethver. She ordered Pete to cut power to everything except engines and weapons. The Nightfall became invisible to most sensors, just another piece of space debris floating in the dark. They followed the convoy for 6 hours, learning its patterns. Danny watched how the Zhiktari ships moved and found weaknesses in their formation. Amy studied their communications and found ways to confuse their coordination. Pete prepared weapons that most humans would never use. When they finally attacked, it was over in minutes. The Nightfall struck like a predator, hitting the weakest ship first. Pete used bioweapons that ate through the alien hull like acid. Amy broadcast fear signals that made the Zhiktari panic and shoot at each other. Danny guided their attacks with the precision of a hunter who had learned to kill or die. When the battle was over, 3 Zhiktari ships were destroyed and 2 were captured. Maria's crew took everything useful from the wreckage: weapons, technology, and most importantly, prisoners. The interrogation of the Zhiktari prisoners was when Maria's crew really began to change. Amy had learned psychological techniques from human extremists that could break someone's mind in hours. She used them on the aliens, but she also used alien methods she had studied. She learned to make the Jektari afraid of things that did not exist. She learned to make them see nightmares when they were awake. Danny discovered that he could track individual Jektari through space by understanding how they thought and moved. He began to predict their actions before they made them, like he was reading their minds. Pete started integrating Jektari technology into his body. He replaced his eyes with alien sensors that could see through solid metal. He replaced parts of his brain with alien computers that could process information faster than any human. But it was Maria who changed the most. She learned to speak Jektari like she had grown up among them. She learned their fighting techniques, their strategies, their ways of thinking about war. When she walked through the captured ships, she moved like she belonged there. The war lasted 18 months, but it felt like forever. The Nightfall became a legend among both humans and aliens. It appeared without warning in Jektari space, destroyed their bases and ships, then vanished like it had never been there. The aliens began to fear the dark spaces between stars, because that was where the human ghost ship lived. Maria's crew stopped looking human after the first year. Danny's eyes had become like those of a predator, able to see in complete darkness. Amy spoke in voices that were not her own, voices of the minds she had broken. Pete was more machine than man, his body a mixture of human flesh and alien technology. But they were winning. Every month, the Jektari lost more ships, more bases, more soldiers. Their empire, which had conquered dozens of species, was being torn apart by a single human ship and its crew of monsters. The turning point came when they captured Fleet Admiral Zekthin, the commander of all Jektari forces. He was brought to the Nightfall in chains, proud and defiant. Maria interrogated him personally. She used methods that would have horrified her younger self. She used alien drugs that made him see his worst fears. She used techniques that attacked his mind directly. She became something that scared even her own crew. When the interrogation was over, she had learned the location of Jektar Prime, the alien homeworld. It was the heart of their empire, protected by every ship and weapon they had left. "We can end this war," Maria told her crew as they stood in the ship's dark command center. "But to do it, we will have to use weapons and methods that will make us into things that humanity might not be able to accept." Danny, Amy, and Pete looked at their captain. They had followed her into darkness for 18 months. They had become monsters together. They were ready to become worse monsters if that was what it took. "What do we do?" Amy asked. Maria looked out at the stars with eyes that had seen too much death and done too many terrible things. "We go to their homeworld," she said. "And we show them what humans become when you threaten everything we love." The final battle was coming. And Maria Santos, who had returned from her first war with darker skills, was about to discover just how dark those skills could become. Jektar Prime hung in space like a red jewel surrounded by 1,000 warships. The alien homeworld was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its red oceans reflected the light of twin suns, and its cities glowed with power that could be seen from space. Maria stood on the bridge of the USS Nightfall, watching the enemy fleet through eyes that were no longer completely human. 18 months of war had changed her in ways she could never undo. When she looked at the Jektari ships, she did not see them as an enemy fleet. She saw them as prey. "Status report," she said in a voice that sounded like wind through a graveyard. Pete Johnson turned from his control station. Half of his face was now metal and circuits, glowing with alien light. When he spoke, his voice came from speakers built into his throat. "All systems ready, Captain," he said. "The bioweapons are loaded. The fear frequency generators are online. The reality distortion field is charging." Danny Rodriguez crouched at his sensor station like an animal ready to pounce. His eyes had changed color during the war, becoming yellow like those of a night hunter. He could see individual ships in the enemy fleet and know exactly how they would move. "I count 943 enemy vessels," Danny reported. "They are arranged in the sacred defense formation. They will fight to the death to protect their homeworld." Amy Chun sat at her communication station, but she was not alone. The minds she had broken during interrogations whispered to her constantly. Now she spoke with their voices, thought with their thoughts. Sometimes she forgot which mind was her own. "The Jektari are broadcasting on all frequencies," Amy said in a voice that belonged to a dead alien admiral. "They are calling for reinforcements from across their empire." "They know we are here," Maria nodded. She had expected this. The Jektari would throw everything they had at the Nightfall. They would fight with the desperation of a species that knew it was about to die. "Begin the attack," Maria ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the Battle of Jektar Prime, but those who witnessed it would never speak of what they saw. It was not a battle in any normal sense. It was something darker, something that broke the rules of war and decency. The Nightfall did not charge at the enemy fleet like a normal warship. Instead, it moved through space like a living shadow, using stealth technology that made it nearly invisible. Pete had connected himself so deeply to the ship's systems that he could make it move like his own body. The first attack was not against the Jektari ships, but against their minds. Amy broadcast fear frequencies that drove entire crews insane. She used techniques learned from a dozen different species, each one designed to break the will to fight. Jektari warriors who had never known fear suddenly found themselves paralyzed with terror. Some shot their own officers. Others turned their weapons on themselves. Danny guided precision strikes against key ships in the enemy formation. But he did not target their weapons or engines. He targeted their life support systems, their medical bays, their food storage. He made the enemy fleet a place where no living thing could survive. Pete used bioweapons that had been banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. Alien viruses that ate metal and flesh alike spread from ship to ship. Strange growths that fed on electrical systems turned the enemy vessels into tombs of twisted metal and dying circuits. But it was Maria who made the difference. She had learned to think like the Jektari during her months of interrogation and study. She knew their tactics, their psychology, their deepest fears. She used that knowledge like a weapon sharper than any blade. Maria broadcast a message to the enemy fleet in perfect Jektari, speaking with the accent of their most sacred warrior clan. She told them that their gods had abandoned them. She told them that their empire was already dead. She told them that fighting was useless because humanity had become something worse than death itself. And the terrible thing was that she was right. The battle lasted 3 days, but by the end of the first day, the outcome was certain. The Jektari fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire species, was being destroyed by a single human ship and its crew of 4. On the second day, Maria used weapons that attacked the enemy on levels beyond the physical. Reality distortion fields made Jektari ships exist and not exist at the same time. Temporal weapons sent enemy vessels backward in time so they could be destroyed before they were built. Dimensional weapons opened holes in space that led to places where nothing could survive. On the third day, the Jektari surrendered. Fleet Admiral Zekthan broadcast an unconditional surrender to all surviving ships. The Jektari Empire, which had lasted for 10,000 years, ended not with a glorious final battle, but with a whimper of defeat from beings who had seen horrors beyond their understanding. Maria accepted the surrender, but she felt no joy in victory. When the Nightfall returned to Earth, it was met by Admiral Lisa Crawford and the entire human fleet. They had come to welcome home their heroes, but what they saw made many of them step backward in fear. The USS Nightfall looked different now. Its hull was covered with organic growths that pulsed like a heartbeat. Strange lights moved beneath its surface like alien blood. It was no longer just a ship. It had become something alive and hungry. Maria and her crew were even more changed. When they walked off the ship, other humans could barely look at them. They moved wrong. They spoke in voices that belonged to dead aliens. They carried the smell of places that existed beyond normal space. Admiral Crawford met them at the docking bay, but she struggled to hide her horror at what they had become. "The war is over," she said carefully. "The Zektari have surrendered. Humanity is safe." Maria looked at the Admiral with eyes that reflected no light. "Yes," she said. "Humanity is safe. But the price was everything we used to be." "What will you do now?" Lisa asked. Maria turned to look at her crew. Danny, who could see through time and space. Amy, who carried the voices of broken minds. Pete, who was more alien machine than human. They were monsters now, but they were monsters who had saved their species. "We go back to the dark," Maria said. "We watch the borders between known space and the unknown. We wait for the next threat, because there is always a next threat. And if that threat comes..." Maria smiled, and it was the most terrible thing Lisa had ever seen. "Then we will be ready," she said. "We will always be ready to become whatever darkness is necessary to keep the light alive." The USS Nightfall left Earth that same day, disappearing into the void between stars. Most people were happy to see it go. They understood that Maria and her crew had saved humanity, but they also understood that the price of that salvation was too terrible to think about. But there were those who knew the truth. Admiral Crawford, Captain Morrison, a few others who understood that sometimes heroes were not the people you wanted to meet, but the people you needed to exist. Maria Santos had returned from her first battle with darker skills. Now she returned from her second battle with skills so dark that they could not be spoken of in civilized company, but she would return again if she was needed. She would always return, carrying whatever burden was necessary to keep humanity safe. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, she waited and watched, ready to become the monster that could defeat monsters. The war was over. The watch had begun. And in that watching, humanity found a kind of peace, knowing that there were those willing to sacrifice not just their lives, but their souls for the greater good.